Hello and welcome to Travel Talk Live. I am Vanessa McGovern and I'm really excited to welcome you to this episode. Now, for those of you that were supporting the launch of Travel Talk Live and watched a few takes on the fan page, you know that we did experience some technical issues due to an internet connection, which is being resolved and will work out for next week. So because of that, we decided to take it offline and pre-record our interview. And so what you're watching now is not live, it's pre-recorded that we're uploading to the fan page because we wanted to provide you, our most appreciated, valued first listeners of Travel Talk Live, with a seamless, uninterrupted presentation of Kelly Mwila's thoughts and guidance and infinite wisdom on travel to Alaska. So that's what this is. So Travel Talk Live is a web show powered by Gifted Travel Network, and we are a network of over 100 travel professionals all over the country, all over the United States, that have varying degree and specialties. So if you are watching this because one of your travel agents recommended the show, welcome. We know you're going to get a lot of great information about travel to Alaska. And if you're one of our travel partners and one of our members of Gifted Travel Network watching, thank you for your support. And we're really excited to share Kelly Mwila with you. So on that note, welcome Kelly to the show, our very first episode. Hello.
Hi, Vanessa. I'm so happy to see you.
And thank you for your patience with all these tech issues and having to start and stop and start and stop. But it's all...
I know why you used me to experiment the first time.
It wasn't supposed to be this way. We did already experiment. We did a whole week. And I guess... as Meredith would say, it's maybe we hit an upper limit. Who knows? So Kelly Mwila is the president and founder of Alaska to Africa Travel. Alaska to Africa Travel is a corporate boutique company specializing in corporate adventure trips. So if you're watching this and you work for a company or you're an executive of a company and you know that you do corporate retreats with your team, you want to work with Kelly, work with your travel professional to work with Kelly, because she plans the most amazing corporate retreats for groups, small groups, to Alaska and Africa. But in addition to that, as a native Alaskan, she is really able to plan the most amazing custom itineraries, even for individuals and couples or small groups and even family members that want to travel together to Alaska, because she is obviously very aware of what you need to experience in order to really understand the beauty of the great state of Alaska. So today we're going to be talking to Kelly about what it's like to travel to Alaska beyond cruising. Now, cruising is a phenomenal way to see Alaska. I've personally done it many times. I worked in Alaska for 2 seasons on different cruise lines, and it is absolutely a beautiful, breathtaking way to experience the great state of Alaska. But there is so much more to what you can experience in Alaska than a 7-night cruise. And so today we're going to learn a little bit more about that. So Kelly, we're really excited to dive in again to this topic, and thank you for your patience. So let's just dive right back in with that really great first broad question, which is just basically like, why should somebody go to Alaska? Why should the traveling public have on their radar to even go to Alaska in the first place?
Okay, good question. Thank you for having me, by the way. This is great. And so why should people go to Alaska? Well, Alaska, they don't call it the last frontier for nothing. It's a beautiful place of overwhelming majesty. It has the most beautiful mountains and the most beautiful forests, and the diversity is amazing. And the things that you really get to see in even a shorter time in Alaska is more than you're going to see anywhere in, I would say, in the United States. I might be biased, but that's, the overwhelming thought is that you really get to experience just an amazing place that is very remote, and you have a chance to, as opposed to being on cruise ships, which is what we talked about before. Cruise ships are a great way to travel, and you can also see some parts of the glaciers and that you can't see in other places. You're still with a lot of people, and in my heart, I really feel like if you want to experience Alaska, you should do it with either a much smaller group, your family or a small group of friends, or just a couple, and be able to experience the peace that Alaska Alaska can really bring you into reclaim that balance and become connected with yourself and connected with nature and connected with the people that you're with. And it's just a touching experience. I know you mentioned that you were overcome with emotion at times when you've gone, but that's why I design trips to Alaska and to Africa, because there's always a moment during those experiences where you're very overcome with emotion and you're so grateful for where you are and what you are seeing, and you feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And Alaska is just one of those places that you can have a lot of fun, you have an adventure, you get out of your comfort zone, but you walk away with the most amazing transformational experiences of your life. And so that's why I really love Alaska.
And in today's world, where ironically we're the most connected I think we've ever been in human history, right? Because of the digital age, we're just, practically speaking, we are the most connected we've ever been. But I would argue that from a soul place, we're just so unconnected. And we're so fast paced as a society. We're a society that just loves instant gratification, and we're moving, and busy. And what you're saying is that Alaska is a beautiful place to just really be still and reconnect with nature and get connected in the most organic way possible, and not by being on Facebook, like in the true in the true way of being, in the original way of being connected.
There are definitely places where you don't have a cell signal, so you just need to relax, because that makes people a little bit crazy sometimes. But it's a good experience to have, and just to be able to let go of that need and experience what you have in front of you. And it's just it's really amazing. It's a really important thing that people really need to do today. And also just to be able to talk to the people that you're with. And I don't know, I spent the week, I just spent a whole month in Alaska in September, and just the first week of fishing with my dad out in the middle of nowhere at this remote lodge was just a beautiful experience to reconnect with him and reconnect with Alaska, because I hadn't been in a little while. And it's just an amazing experience, and it's beautiful. And we got to see, because I grew up in interior Alaska, that's what people don't realize, that it's very vast. And interior Alaska I grew up with lakes and rivers and fishing and things like that, but I didn't grow up near the ocean. So to be out fishing and then to see the whales jumping while I'm fishing, I'm in heaven.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So tell us a little, I know we've already started touching on it, so let's maybe talk very specifically about it. What do you believe are the main differences between taking a cruise to Alaska and doing a land tour to Alaska? Because, the mainstream traveling public will default to cruising. That's really what's marketed, to North Americans as a way to see Alaska. And I really want to inspire our viewers to, if you've been on a cruise already and and you're hearing Kelly and you're like, yes, I've seen those mountains. I did experience the majesty of Alaska, and I want more, or I want to bring my kids back, or my parents back, or I want to go, recommend my company sends us there on a retreat. Now they can go to do something that you would recommend in a land tour. So what should consumers know about the big difference between if they take the standard 7-night cruise experience versus a land tour?
Okay, so the main thing is, we all know with cruises, you're kind of locked into the ocean.
Right.
You're just going to be there. And Alaska's huge. So you're not going to see...
Well, define huge.
Huge is like I was saying before, from Anchorage, which is in southern Alaska, to into the biggest city in the interior is 300 miles, but that's only going halfway across the state. So, there's thousands of miles and millions and billions of acres of land. It's bigger than Texas. It's bigger than more than half the United States. So people who want to spend a week there, they're not going to be able to see the northern part and the southern part and south central Alaska. So you have to give yourself time. But the reason that you would want to do something that wasn't just cruising is, of course, cruising is you're with so many people all the time. And really authentic Alaskan experiences you're not really around people. You're in the quiet. You're in the peacefulness of nature. And so, there's so many reasons to do that. So you can do wildlife touring and going up onto glaciers um, and just seeing the different parts of Alaska and the history of it is extraordinary. The one thing I would say is that some people, one of the reasons that people do cruises more than land tours in Alaska is there's not as many people who do what I do, and there's obviously the cruise ships market and things like that. But generally, cruising is cost less than going on a land tour. And that's just the nature of it. When you have a mass market cruise ship, you have millions of people, and it's just a machine.
Well, maybe not millions.
But you can tell Vanessa's more of a cruise person. I'm like respecting the cruise.
I do love a good cruise. Yes, it is true. But I would like to experience. But I absolutely want to experience Alaska the way you've described. I mean, there's so much more beyond what you can see on a cruise.
Yes.
So much more.
Yes.
So talk to us about, okay, so now people are understanding the vastness of Alaska. They're understanding the various activities that they can engage in beyond cruising. So how much time should a traveler allot to a trip to Alaska on land?
Well, so a lot of people just have a week, and they have 7 days to come, and that's fine, but you really only are going to go fly in and out of Anchorage or into Ketchikan and out of Anchorage. You're just going to see southern Alaska. If you want to see the interior and go to Denali National Park, which is a huge, it's the highest peak in North America, and the wildlife there is incredible. They have tours into the park and things that you're not going to be able to see any other way. There's also the Alaska Railroad that goes all the way from, the very down south of the Kenai Peninsula all the way up to interior Alaska. And when you're on the train, there's things you just can't see. So if you want to see the interior, you definitely have to have at least 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
I mean, as long as possible is key. But you can do something amazing in 7 days if that's all you have. But really, to see the vastness of Alaska, you want to have a little bit more time to dedicate to it.
Okay.
So
and does it also depend on the type of activity that somebody wants to do? Like maybe they're, we had talked before about skiers, and I know that's not technically falls within the season. Or maybe there's people that just really like hiking, or maybe there's people that want to go specifically for fishing. Like, would it also depend on the activity, depending on how much time they need?
Yeah, possibly. So a lot of people, and especially corporate groups that I have, sometimes it's just a bonding experience, and the guys want to go fishing every summer. And so they go to a remote lodge, they go fishing, and that's all. But if people want to see Alaska and they want to go fishing, but they want to do some activities as well and see a little bit more, if they want to have some adventure activities, if they want to do dog sledding, if they want to go and have lunch on a glacier, or if they want to go stay in a remote lodge somewhere and do hiking, it really depends on how many things that they really want to get done. So, yeah. I try not to do anything less than 10 days because it's a long ways to go for most people, especially if you're on the East Coast.
Right. So in terms of activities, we had a conversation before going live and then now the recording. You had used the phrase soft adventure versus hard adventure. What do you mean by that? And I guess how do people know if they can handle a trip to Alaska? Because there's people that are consider themselves slow walkers, they're not that active. Could they go to Alaska? Because what we're describing are some pretty rigorous activities.
Okay, so yes, definitely. And so that's sort of the beauty of it. So, if you want to go out on the rivers, there's float trips. So you don't really have to do any work. You can just float down the river and have a guide, point out different things that are happening and all that sort of stuff. So that's really just relaxing and fun, and you get to be there. If you want to go whitewater rafting, that's a different thing, and that's going to be a little more rigorous. And there's also, just because, so you speak of glaciers, and people think that's really intense. Well, I went glacier climbing last month, and that was the first time I'd actually climbed on a glacier, and I was a little bit nervous because, I work in adventure travel. I love doing adventures, and I've done some hardcore things, but I wasn't actually sure. So it was good for me to experience just the climbing, just a little hike around the glacier, because it wasn't too difficult. It was perfectly fine. We kayaked across the lake first, and it was I would say just medium adventure. I mean, it wasn't so soft, but there's other things where you can just take a 45-minute hike that's not a hard hike, that's not a difficult hike.
Okay.
Or you can do something, but there's also, when we talk about hard adventure, there's mountain climbing and there's ice climbing, and that's a totally different level of things, which we can actually absolutely accommodate, but
Okay.
it's not, for the faint of heart or for the inexperienced. So the thing to remember is Alaska's nothing to play with, and that you have to, weigh the risks of everything, which is something I'm really good at doing, and just seeing at what level you're at and what experience you have at different particular activities. So
Right.
it's really cool, but you can do some very cool things even if you're not. Even if you are a bit of a slow walker, you don't have to be the fittest person in the world to go land on a glacier and have lunch and walk around and have this amazing experience.
So you're talking about things that, I mean, you would be able to very specifically give information on, or the Gifted Travel Network travel professional that's working with you would obviously be able to communicate this information to the clients and to the traveling public who's considering a trip. Now, how do you feel about, there's consumers out there, many consumers out there, many who might be watching this right now, that think that they're listening to you, they're totally inspired, they want to go to Alaska on a land tour, but I'll just go online and figure this out myself. What do you obviously we don't recommend that, but why is that not look at your
I'm like, bad idea.
Yeah. But describe to the consumer why they need to be working through a travel professional that's going to use you, the expert in Alaska. Like, what is it that the internet's not going to, what is it that they're not going to find?
Well, first of all, we talked about the season in Alaska. The season is, I don't know if we talked about it this time, but the season is short. So the season is May through September.
Right, that's short.
Like early September.
Right.
And the accommodations are, there's not a ton. It's
and I want to talk to you about that too. We'll come back to that, describing the accommodations.
And so you're going to want to work with a professional who knows what places are actually, the nicer places, where they are, how the food is, where the people are, how accessible it is, and just going online and trying to figure it out is, it's not, I don't think it's the wisest decision, because people get inspired by weird stories of people just going to Alaska and like having an amazing time, and and then they get themselves into trouble. So Alaska can have the weather can be a little bit crazy. You really have to be prepared for the elements and for where you're going to be, and work with people who put your safety first, and know how to, if weather does come up, how to get you out of a situation. And there's just a lot of various,
factors to consider, I'm sure.
That you have to think about. And one of the reasons too that I really love working with Africa and Alaska is it's not a place that people should ever just like go online and look at something and then just go there. You really need a professional to help you, especially if you're going to pay that kind of money to get to that place. You want to have the best experience possible, and you want to have someone who's advising you, and also who you can call and say, this is what's happening, something weird's going on, and just get the help that you need and the support you need to have the best experience that you could possibly have. So
great.
Yeah, don't go on the internet.
Yes, exactly. Listen to Kelly. She knows what she's talking about.
Cabin's like, yeah, my cabin's great. And they take some nice pictures, and then you're regretting it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the accommodations. I wanted to go back to that. What can a traveler expect? Because when I'm picturing, first of all, I said I cruised in Alaska, so but I also stayed in Ketchikan, which I'm sure you know, Cape Fox Lodge, which is a beautiful lodge.
Yes.
But I also found like a really inexpensive hotel once that I had to spend the night in Ketchikan before joining a ship, which was no bueno. And what can a traveler expect expect? Like, what's the range? Like, is there really like uber luxurious accommodations if somebody wants to do that, or is it like describe what people where they're sleeping? Like, what can they expect when they're in Alaska? Where are they sleeping?
Want to sleep
In the
tent,
woods?
go sleep in a tent. Some people like tents and go out camping and go hiking, and that's
And you can
totally
arrange that,
available.
right?
Huh?
You can arrange that if they want to do that.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I do that as myself. Like, we go out camping, and I love camping. Most of my clients don't tend to want to do that when they're in Alaska, but that's a whole, a different thing, which I also do. But for people who are generally like used to hotels, I will say, just to manage expectations, that Alaska doesn't really do 5-star. That's not something. I mean, we're getting there, but it's funny because when people go to Africa, they expect it to be not that nice, but the African lodges are amazing. I'm always blown away when I go to these lodges. In Alaska, so Alyeska is an amazing resort. It's beautiful. Like, I'm not, it might as well be 5-star. It's just gorgeous. There's
and where is Alyeska?
It's in Girdwood, Alaska, so it's about 45 minutes south of Anchorage.
Of Anchorage.
The drive there is absolutely amazing, and there's a lot of activities that launch from there.
Okay.
So, and that's a place where in the winter they go skiing and heli-skiing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Those activities.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's really nice.
And Alyeska is something that clients can do in the summer and in the winter. It's a year-round.
Absolutely.
Year-round. What about
and so
families?
Accommodations in other places, there's definitely accommodations that I prefer, my preferred places that I always go. And so you get some nice places, but there's just not 5-star accommodations anywhere. In Anchorage, the Captain Cook Hotel is gorgeous, and they do a really nice job, and they have amazing restaurants. So that's probably the nicest hotel in Anchorage, and it is very nice. And there's some nice hotels. But in Anchorage, no one really stays in Anchorage for very long. It's sort of a launching point. Like, some of my clients will get them on float planes to go out and see the bears from there. And you can do hikes in Anchorage and things like that. But for whichever tour we go on, you really in Anchorage usually just one night or 2 nights throughout the entire thing. Because who wants to be in a big city when you're traveling to Alaska?
Exactly.
Not me.
So paint a picture of an itinerary. If I was to come to you and say, okay, I have a client, one of my clients wants to go do a 10-night trip to Alaska, and they're moderate in terms of activity level and a good, decent budget. What are the highlights? Like, what would somebody traditionally do? And the client is like, I just want to experience authentic Alaska. So what do you recommend?
Probably, I liked it when they have a good enough amount of time, like 10 days. It's nice to start in Fairbanks in the interior and just work south. So in interior Alaska, it's known for gold mining, and you can do some mining for gold there if you want, and riverboat cruises, and you can also, there's dog sledding experiences in the interior, though there's dog sledding experiences like on glaciers down south as well.
And dog sledding can be done in the summer as well as the winter?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they just hook them up in different ways, and you can ride through the forest with the dogs, and they love it. People sometimes get scared that they are, being abused, but those dogs are the happiest dogs in the entire world. You've never seen happier dogs with people. That's what they live for. So, and it's adorable. It's the best thing. So, you can do that in the interior. And then 2 hours south of there, which can be done by car or by train, is or by the Alaska Railroad, is Denali National Park. So, a stop in the park, doing river rafting, and also a wildlife tour for a couple days. That's a beautiful place to be. It's very peaceful. There's places to walk around. And everybody really needs to see and spend a couple days, because you want to be able to see the mountain, and it's not always visible. So it's a real big treat when the clouds aren't covering Denali, and you can actually see it. But you have opportunities to see it both from Fairbanks and from obviously Denali. And I actually had the experience of having dinner in Anchorage, and it was a really clear day, and we were eating, and we could see it out the window, and it was really amazing.
Wow.
So that was an amazing privilege. We were like, we can't believe we're just sitting here, like, looking at the mountain.
Wow.
So, yeah, so then after Denali, then you would probably go to Anchorage and either do probably a night in Anchorage, and you can kind of look at the historical, museums and things like that in downtown Anchorage, relax, and then probably go to Alaska and do the hike up to Alaska Glacier, have an amazing dinner there, do a float trip down the mountain, and then going south to Seward after that is a drive,
Okay.
just a couple hours,
Okay.
and so you probably finish off with, if people want to go fishing, I like to do fishing at the end because they pack up the fish for you. They do an amazing job and they freeze it and then they deliver it to the airport. And then you just go to the airport and check it like a bag. And you have amazing fresh fish when you get home. And
that's fantastic.
fun. Yeah.
So the fish gets checked like your luggage?
Yeah. Alaska Airlines has the best job. And they have them in either like 25 or 50-pound boxes. And it's just like a regular bag, an extra bag or whatever you happen to have.
That's hysterical.
And once you get down to like the Kenai Peninsula, where definitely like I would do fishing from mostly, or going out to remote lodges. But if you do fishing from there, there's just a lot of different activities like zip lining down there, and also I highly recommend a trip to do bear viewing, whether it's by helicopter or float plane.
Okay.
I cannot emphasize enough how that will be the highlight of any trip, to go land where there's bears. And
wow.
And
that's scary.
It's life-changing.
Isn't that not
I know,
scary?
I was for like a second, but it's life-changing, and you're walking around and they don't care that you're there, and it's I was touched by
So the bears don't care that you're there?
No.
Wouldn't they sense your like freaked out energy? Even just a little?
No, I mean, the people that I work with have been doing it for 15 years. I recommend the helicopter ride. There's only one company that can do helicopter, that have a permit to take the helicopter out and land where the glacier where the bears are. And I think that's amazing, because when you go out on the float plane, sometimes there's a ton of float planes there and there's lots of people around, but when you're out in the helicopter, it's such an exclusive, intimate experience, and you're just there with maybe one or two people, and they can land right where the bears are. So, it kills. It's an amazing thing to do.
Wow. So tell me about, as you're describing this, I'm putting myself in my own shoes, and like I obviously want to do what you're describing, but obviously I have 2 children under the age of 5, which are still too young. Like, what ages would you recommend? Like, this sounds like, talk about bonding. I mean, this sounds like Alaska's a great place to go in the summer with your kids. How old do you think children should be? Do you recommend personally, based on your experience and having also lived in Alaska? So I want your perspective, but then I also want the practical answer of like, how old does some kids even have to be to do that kind of a trip? Like, from legality, I'm sure that there's got to be an age limit to some of these things, or an age requirement.
Possibly. I don't know. We're pretty liberal in Alaska.
Okay.
We raise party kids.
That's funny.
We just throw any age on the raft. So I would say pretty young. I mean, my niece is 7 years old, and she lives in Alaska, and she skis and rafts and does basically all these activities. And I wouldn't think twice about taking her out on the helicopter to see the bears.
Okay.
But it's at 7 and 8, like, you kind of remember those things. You're old enough, I think, to sort of appreciate how awesome it is. And I have friends who have kids who they brought up at young ages, and the kids loved it and remembered it and wanted to go back. And I think that's an extraordinary thing to do with your family when the kids are young, because it instills in them that love for nature and the appreciation for Alaska and that treasure that this country has, and then they'll want to come back again and again and share it with their families. So I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to bring families, and it's a very family-friendly place.
Sounds like it.
Just everybody does everything together, so there's not like just adults here, or
it's a great place for
don't have to dress
bonding.
up kids or anything ever.
Right. So what should I be asking you right now what am I missing in terms of asking you to really highlight some other important aspects of traveling to Alaska?
Well, one thing I like to mention is that a lot of people like what they really want to see the Northern Lights. And yeah, so that's a really important thing to know about because it has to be dark enough to see them. And in Fairbanks, you know, where I was raised, like, you don't see darkness if you go to sleep at night for about 3 months. Like, it gets you know, dusky, it gets dark. But
unless you must have like those blackout curtains in your house.
Yes, and they have them in the hotels too. Even down south and in southern Alaska, the sun is out pretty late in the summer months when most of the tourists are there. And things start to shut down towards mid-September. But I was there during September, and I was there for a conference, and there were people who had just been tour operators from all over the world, and some of them had been in Fairbanks previous to me meeting them, and they saw the Northern Lights.
Okay.
So you can't see them late in the season if you're up north towards Fairbanks, or even further north than that. But you can see it. It's just you need to be prepared to go late in the season, and it's going to be colder as well during like September. So if you really hate the cold, you probably won't see the Northern Lights in Alaska. But you can never guarantee that you're going to see it. They have forecasts and things like that. But it is an amazing thing to see, but it's more of a winter activity. And people do travel in winter. It just depends on how hardcore they are when it comes to snow and cold and everything, because Alaska's no joke when it comes to cold winters.
I want to write that down to remember, like, to quote you, Alaska is no joke. Kelly Mwila. So yes, well, because we're pre-recording this, recording this now because of the tech issues, we don't have any questions to come in to ask you. So let me ask you before we wrap up here: what are the frequently asked questions that you? And I know you actually just spent a great deal of time with a member of Gifted Travel Network, educating her to help her clients, and in terms of, you know, travel to Alaska. Maybe you can draw from that conversation, or maybe you have a list of just, you know, questions that you know of. But like, what are some of the questions that you typically get in terms of travel to Alaska?
Okay, so there are a lot of frequently asked questions, especially about what the season and then what season you can go fishing. And the fishing seasons are different for different types of fish. But generally July is a time where you can catch almost anything. A lot of people want to get king salmon. And of course the season can change depending on the laws that Fish and Game sets every year. When they open the season, when they close the season, depending on the salmon runs. So those are a lot of questions regarding fishing. I get a lot.
Okay.
And, but you really can in some you can go fishing all season long. It just depends on what you actually, if you really want to go fishing for halibut, or if you really want to go fishing for salmon, what are you looking for? So those are things that's why it's good to have someone custom design your trip for you, so you're able to catch the things that you want.
Okay.
The other thing is I get questions about the weather. Is it really cold and things like that? And of course, we always say in Alaska, you know, I send all my clients packing lists and things like that, because it can vary a lot. Like you can have a really cold night and it can frost, and the next day it can be beautiful and sunny. So you really have to dress in layers, especially when you're doing any physical activities. If you're going to go walking on a glacier, you're going to have to you're going to get hot because the sun is it's ice, but the sun is reflecting, and you are going to get hot.
Right.
The other thing I wanted, before we wrapped up, another cool thing that Alaska has to offer is there's a ton of breweries all over Alaska. Alaska's popping up with the most amazing craft breweries. Everywhere I went, I mean, I grew up with, you know, breweries here and there, but this last time I went, they're just popping up everywhere, and they have fairs for them. And so people who are into craft beer and everything, that's a really fun experience. And I was thinking about putting together a tour for beer lovers.
That's
so
great.
That in mind, if you guys are interested in breweries, because they are throughout the entire state of Alaska, and it's delicious.
That is a great way to drink your way through Alaska.
Yes.
It might soften the blow when you're dumped in the middle of a bunch of bears.
I don't want to blow up our spot or anything, but Alaskans drink beer. So, And then the other thing is that I didn't really get into the remote lodges, but
Oh yeah.
there's some when we were talking about accommodations, the
Mm-hmm.
remote lodges are probably as 5 stars as you're going to get, and they are amazing.
Okay.
Most of them have the most amazing food you're ever going to eat. It's all fresh Alaskan
Yeah.
seafood, and
Yeah.
no, it kills. So, and then even one of them even has a cooking, one of the only cooking schools in Alaska. So you can go and you can include, if you're into culinary things, you can go and do a cooking class.
Where is that?
That's at one of the remote lodges that I work with.
And
so,
where would that remote lodge be? Like near Fairbanks, Anchorage?
Well, you would go out of Anchorage and you would probably take a float plane. Because the remote lodges, normally you get there by float plane, and they fly right up to the dock, and then they meet you at the dock, and they take your bags up, and they're all inclusive. Almost all of the remote lodges are all inclusive. So, you can go fishing. You can be cold when you're out fishing, and then you go and you can have this beautiful hot tub to get warm, and they bring you cocktails, and then you have hors d'oeuvres of like amazing seafood, and then you have this dinner. You definitely don't go hungry, but you're burning a lot of calories doing all the fishing and stuff.
That sounds amazing. So if you were to do like a 7 to 10 day trip, would you have time to squeeze in a remote lodge?
Yeah, you could do a couple days at a remote lodge, and then and especially it's nice to do it at the very end. They definitely add a bit to the budget, but it's totally worth it. And if you do sort of the land tour beforehand, and then you end at this beautiful remote lodge where you're fishing and being spoiled and everything like that, it's super nice.
Now, if there's any viewers that want to do the cruise, and then maybe stay for another 7 days, to make it a 14-day trip, you can work with them as well, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I've worked with some GTN agents already and done post-cruise tours for them. Okay. And so I know that cruises offer the post-cruise tours. Again, it's with a lot of people, though. You can expect to be on the train, and and I used to be fair, I used to work for Princess when I was in college. So every summer I'd come home from college and I worked for Princess. So I know how that goes, and they do a really nice job. Mm-hmm. But if you want that experience where you're alone or with your small group of friends or family, and you just want that exclusive experience where you're not just with the crowds of people anymore, so you can sort of do both, then we do a really good job with that. And I've only had great reviews and great feedback from people who have done that. Very good. So it's absolutely doable. And
so you hinted there at budget. So let's talk about that to end the last point. What kind of a budget should travelers be prepared for if they really want to have a great, maybe not top of the line, but a true, authentic Alaskan experience? Like, what kind of a budget are we talking?
I would say that you wouldn't probably want to go under $3,000 a person, $3,000 to $4,000 a person.
For a minimum of how many nights?
You got to do a minimum of 7.
Okay, right.
If you do any less than 7, you're not gonna enjoy yourself. You're not gonna have time to just decompress. There's also a time change. You need to consider some factors so that you'll be able to relax and enjoy where you're at. But yeah, I would say a minimum of 7 days, but try to do 10, 14.
Okay.
And do what you like. Get things. Work with me and get what you want out of the experience. So I know GTN travel agents are super good with helping their clients design something that really is going to make them have the best experience and have a life-changing experience. And I love GTN agents, so I'm happy to work with them to figure out what would be the best for their clients and something that they'd really enjoy, that they will love them forever for.
Well, we know that you are the real deal and that you do an amazing job. Many of our agents have used you already and already say rave reviews, give you rave reviews. And so for those of you watching, if you're watching this and you do not have a travel professional, you want to reach out to us, you can email us, info@giftedtravelnetwork.com. If you do not have a travel professional, we will absolutely refer you to one within our network that will work with Kelly to custom craft this. Kelly is what's known as a tour operator, so the travel professionals work with Kelly as the on-the-ground expert, or as the expert in this particular part of the world, as you can see, to be able to custom craft that experience for you. So if you are watching this episode of Travel Talk and I don't want to say Travel Talk Live because we're not technically live anymore because we have to record this, but if you're watching Travel Talk and you were referred to this episode from your trusted travel advisor, then you go back to your travel advisor and tell them that you absolutely are ready to take that bucket list trip to Alaska, and they will work with Kelly. And so I also want to put it out there for our Gifted Travel Network members. If you book a trip to Alaska for your clients, and if you're a if you're a client and you're working with a Gifted Travel Network professional, Gifted Travel Network member, and you book a trip that involves Kelly, one of Kelly's trips, by January 15th for a 2017 Alaskan experience, you're going to get $200 off your booking. So that's a special incentive, but it's only available to the GTN network. So if you do not have a travel professional, you absolutely want to be using one from Gifted Travel Network. If you don't know anybody that isn't GTN, just email us info@giftedtravelnetwork.com and we'll be happy to refer you. If you were referred by a travel professional, then I am 99.999% certain that that travel professional is with GTN. So you just contact your travel professional and they will help you. So, Kelly, any parting words of wisdom for our viewers in terms of travel to Alaska?
Well, I would just say that if you haven't been to Alaska, it's definitely a place that you want to go to in your lifetime and to share it with people that you care about, and share it with and I love to work with corporate teams, but whoever you do go with, it's a life-changing experience. You really have moments of transformation that you just can't get anywhere else, and I highly recommend that you do it. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and we just would love to help you, create a dream vacation for you guys and do something that's awesome. So yeah, let me help you out and do something amazing. Alaska is just, it's the best.
And to your tagline, do something awesome together. Right? So yes. Kelly Mwila of Alaska to Africa Travel. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being so patient with the tech issues and for also sharing your love of Alaska and just really painting a picture for our viewers of what's possible in an Alaska adventure beyond what the typical traveling public knows, which is cruising, which, as we said from the beginning, is absolutely a must and definitely recommend it. But once you do that, most likely you want more because, as you described it, Alaska is so majestic. You just want to go and experience more. So thank you for sharing all the different facets that there is to know and to whet our appetite on this. And we look forward to working with you, Kelly. Thank you for being on Travel Talk Live. Thank you to our listeners for watching, Kelly. If you have any questions, you can reach out to your Gifted Travel Network agent directly so that they can help you with your travel to Alaska plans. And if you do not have a Gifted Travel Network agent helping you on your next trip, you're more than welcome to reach out to us so we can refer you to one at info@giftedtravelnetwork.com. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next Tuesday at noon for the next Travel Talk Live. Thank you, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Thank you.